Hey everyone, this video is probably the hardest one that I've ever had to make, but I felt like I really needed to share this, not just for me, but for somebody out there who's maybe grieving too, or might be going through something really similar. In April 2020, right in the heart of the first lockdown, I lost my dad to cancer. It was during a time when the world had already stopped, but my world, it was spinning at 100 miles an hour, and then it just shattered completely. This is my story of loss, isolation, grief, and what I've learned about love, pain, and healing along the way. We first found out my dad had cancer around August of 2019. He'd had a cold for about 3 weeks, which he just couldn't get rid of. And then after a couple of visits to the doctors, he hesitantly told me that he had blood in his urine. Now, my dad was old school. He was a former undercover detective. He stood at 6'2" in height and was probably about the same in shoulder width. He was a man that you just didn't mess with, if you know what I mean. A loving, caring, and sometimes gentle man at home, but like to the outside world, he was serious, firm, and had a steadfast character. He knew exactly what he was doing, when he was doing it, and you just couldn't tell him otherwise. So you can imagine his reaction when this lovely 5'2" Indian doctor told him that he needed to come back in for more tests. "I'm fine, it's nothing, don't be worrying about me, son." The problem was, I wasn't like my dad, and I'd already lost my mum and 4 other relatives to cancer over the years. And I knew this was something more serious than he was actually letting on. It felt like everything spiraled so fast. One day he wasn't feeling well. A few tests later, we got the news, and it hit like a freight train. You hear the word cancer and your brain just stops. Nothing makes sense. There's fear, anger, disbelief, and desperate hope that maybe they're just wrong. We tried to stay strong. We told ourselves that we had time, treatment might help, but deep down, we just all felt that the clock was ticking. This was probably the hardest part. I mean, COVID just changed everything. Hospitals had new rules, limited visits, masks, isolation. I couldn't hug my dad the way I wanted to. I couldn't sit with him for hours like before. There were moments where he was just alone, and we were on the other side of like a video call instead of actually being by the side of his bed. And as a family, we were grieving in pieces. No proper gatherings, no community support, no funerals the way that we needed them to be. It was just silence and just distance. You know, as things got worse, time just seemed to stretch and collapse at the same time. I remember his voice, like he just got weaker, and I just remember moments that the times that we did spend with him, that how precious that they became. The last in-person visit I had to the hospital was on the 17th of March 2020, a few days before the official lockdown in the UK. I was actually getting a flight back that day about 2 p.m. So this was one of the last chances that I had to see my dad. And this was the last time I'd probably get to look into his eyes, tell him how much I loved him and how proud I was of him. And as it entered the ward at the hospital, to my horror, it was all sealed up. And there was a nurse telling me that the ward had been put into isolation, and I just couldn't see him. Now, those nurses knew exactly my situation, who I was, who my dad was, and everything. And they knew that my dad was a couple of weeks away from dying. And I think it was the tears running down the cheeks of my face. She knew that she just had to let me in. She told me that I had 10 minutes and that she just wouldn't have been able to sleep at night if she hadn't granted me this final visit. I got 10 very long and heartbreaking minutes to tell my dad everything I wanted to say. I remember kissing him on the forehead and walking away, knowing that that was it. I'll never get to see him, touch him, smell him, laugh with him or listen to any more of his stories about what it was like when he was growing up. I have to say, those last few days, they were like a blur of emotion. You don't think about sleep or food. You think about every word, every breath, every single smile that he managed to give you. And then one day, there's no more smiles. There's just silence. And you're left with this massive space where your dad used to be. Losing a parent is unlike any other pain. It's losing your history, your anchor, your guide. It's like suddenly you're a kid again, but there's no one coming to pick you up. I'd see his chair, his mug, his handwriting, and for a second I'd forget, and then it would hit me all over again. There's a quiet kind of grief that creeps in days, weeks, and even months after. And then the calls stop. The world expects you to be okay, but you're not. But that is okay. I remember trying to talk to a couple of friends about my situation and how I felt, but along with family members, everyone was suddenly had their own issues to deal with. I had children who spent days upon days in their rooms, and a business that was at standstill. And when I talked to friends, they were more stressed about their jobs and money. And, my wife was working around the clock due to the nature of her line of work. And it was just one of those horrible times during lockdown that everyone was in panic mode. And I just couldn't talk to anyone about how I was feeling about losing my dad. Now, if you're going through something similar, or you've lost somebody you love, here are some things that help me. And maybe they might be able to help you too. Don't rush grief. Let yourself feel it, cry, scream, sit in silence. Whatever your process is, it's valid. Talk about them. Share stories. Say their name. Don't let people act like that they didn't exist just because it's uncomfortable. And find yourself or find someone to talk to. I decided to start praying and thanking God for everything that I had. And I'll be honest, that really helped me so much. And I actually found YouTube really useful, like listening to other people's stories. And that's why I really wanted to make this video and share it. So I potentially might help others who are going through what I've been through. Even talking with a trusted friend or writing in a journal, that can also release a lot of pressure that's inside you. Celebrate their life, not just mourn their loss. I started remembering the funny moments, the advice, his laugh. It helped me turn my pain into something warmer. I also believe that sometimes things happen in life for a reason. And there's like a purpose behind situations. I mean, we hadn't as a family been together properly on holiday for a few years. And that April of 2019, 1 year before my dad passed away, we got to spend a week together in Spain, swimming, building sandcastles on the beach, just having lovely meals, nights out. I just think it was all meant to be. And I also remember one trip back from the hospital early on before he was actually diagnosed with cancer. Me and my dad decided to go and visit a home that we lived in for almost 10 years. It was like a trip down memory lane. And it just brought back so many great memories and laughs that afternoon and stories. It was just brilliant. And I think that was also meant to be. So be kind to yourself. Grief isn't linear. One day you're okay, the next you can't breathe. But that's normal. If I could just say one more thing to my dad, it would just be thank you for everything. Grief never really ends, but neither does love. And that love keeps showing up in dreams, in memories, in who I'm becoming. So if you're hurting, please know you're not alone. There are people who understand, who felt this pain, and who want to walk beside you as you heal. If this video has helped you in any way, or even if you're going through something similar, feel free to drop a comment or a message below. Let's talk, let's support each other. And if you are still lucky enough to have your parents around, hug them, call them, tell them that you love them. I wish I had just one day, but I'm grateful for every one that I did have with my dad. So thanks very much for watching. Thank you, and thank you, Dad, for everything.